to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a very long agenda for tonight, and we'll try to move through it rather quickly. So first, to let everyone know, we had a closed session today, and there's no portable items on that closed session. Next, we're moving to the total comments, and so I have a list of individuals that want to speak today. I'm gonna call out your name, and if I pass your name, just forgive me. That was very. I got 5. 6. Okay.
Director Jones, do you want to remind folks of a time limit and ask Michelle to?
Thank you. There is a time that you have asked that you condense the 5 pages that you wrote down to 3 minutes. And that will be very helpful, because if not, we'll be here all night. I'm okay. I don't go too far for you, not go the wrong way, but I'm sure we want to get out here early. Is that something with everyone? The first person one for first public comment is Jennifer Michael.
Michelle.
Michelle, okay.
Dear board and staff, I'm Jen Michelle, a native and born, raised, and living in District 3, Menlo Park. Personal general comment. As you know, I am formerly homeless teacher in Menlo Park and supporting housing development in each district to help further our housing goals. I want to welcome our neighbors who are now actively involved in our civics and fire protection considerations. Welcome. Our housing laws require us to foster building in resource-rich areas like District 4 and District 5 or west of El Camino or Beats 1 and 2 in the Menlo Police Fire District. Menlo Police District. Building affordable housing in the downtown checks off this requirement where the Civic Center does not. You, as a board, know it's unrealistic to assume that the city won't grow, especially given our natural annual population growth with our children. I know that the district is ready and able to welcome more neighbors who are not necessarily vehicle drivers. I challenge our neighbors here. You have admittedly publicly that you are the traffic. You drive a mile to get your groceries and shop downtown. Because of my heart condition, you can see right here, I scooter or walk or take the bus, which is awesome. If you care about fire protection, you are ready for these conversations that you want to be disaster prepared. Sign up for CERT. Yeah. Or you can take a first aid class or become a floor warden at work or take FEMA classes or learn search and rescue, take FEMA classes and take, logistically complicated here, get a ham radio license, practice GMRS or FRS radio skills, learn to read fire code, support fire technicians living locally, join the Menlo Park Police Fire Community Academy, or sign up And for neighborhood preparedness organization groups like NPC Ready or ADAPT, if you live in Atherton.
Excuse me, the 3 minutes has
Oh,
passed.
okay, sorry. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
You got it? Okay.
You give it a hand. Okay. All right. Great. The next person is Wendy McPherson.
Yes, hi. I want to start off by saying there is nothing more I would like than to provide you with some housing, permanent housing. So I just want to start out by saying that I thank you for all the information I got from you too. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. I appreciate the reputation this fire department has throughout the state. First, I wanted for the advanced Pacific Palisades. On a personal note, I got to see a real life training session on Maywood Lane. I live on Maywood Lane, and they were there all last week. It was just so exciting. All the trucks down there, the house was coming down, and all the trucks were there, and it was just really fun. We even had artificial smoke, which I thought was really pretty cool. So anyway, that was sort of fun. However, my main point today is to address the issue of the high-density housing proposal in 50% of the downtown parking lots. I'm hardly an expert on fire management. I mean, I'm totally a layperson, but obviously know some basic fire management procedures. The problematic issues to me in this particular location is the buildings will have very close, really, really close proximity to old downtown buildings. Additionally, both the access routes and evacuation routes are old, tight streets, of which there's parking on both sides right now. Traffic is heavy on the surrounding streets already, and people are just cruising around looking for parking. Currently, there is no plan for replacement parking, none. I wanted to say personally how I support low-income housing. I served 3 terms on the Housing Commission in Menlo Park, and that's been what I've been doing since the 90s. And I have to tell you, I personally do not know one person who I've talked to who lives in Menlo Park that is against low-income or moderate-rate housing. Thank you.
Next person is Mary.
Hi,
Hi, come on up, Mary.
do I have to come up or does it matter?
If
Oh,
you
it
can
does.
make it up and be great.
Oh, yeah, no, I
If you
can.
can't, then you see where you're at.
So sorry, I had my granddaughter print it out for me and she missed the whole first page. So I'm gonna have to wing it. So I'm a long time homeowner in Menlo Park downtown. And I'm a builder, built many homes in the Bay Area. And I'm fairly proficient on fire safety. My son is Michael Seaton, who is the 2025, he's a Menlo Park fire medic. And he is the 2025 recipient of the Fireman of the Year. So I'm pretty proud of that. So the downtown parking lot housing plan, they're not realistic, they're not feasible, they're not practical, and most of all, they're not safe. The way the lots are configured, there's not enough width for any housing. All the perimeter buildings would have to be gone, all those businesses. Accent on I, Misha's business, Expressions, Gray's Paint, all of them on University. In order, the captain knows your minimum of 20 feet on either side. By the time you put 20 feet and 20 feet for ingress and egress, you have about 35 feet to build. Now, according to John Johnston, you could build 2 stories. That's a very far cry. You would probably get about 70 houses on all 3 lots. That's really a far cry from the 365 to 425 needed. In case of evacuation, it would be a nightmare. It's not, I'm telling you, I don't even know what the council is thinking. They have not discussed it with the fire board. They have not be there. And I have spoken to Mid-Pin, who I'm very familiar with. And they are saying, I don't think they're actually bidding on this one, giving the RFQs. But long before you get RFQs, you have to have RFPs. And there's not even renderings of what's happening. And yes, she's right, that's really noble of you to think that people are not gonna use cars. And with this affordable housing, 100%, they don't need to provide any parking for their residents. But to think that the people that live there are not gonna have a car is almost discriminatory. To say, oh, you're just because you're lower income, you're not gonna need a car to go to work in Mountain View or somewhere else.
Mary, just to.
Yes.
3 minutes, but if you wanna wrap up your
Okay.
statement, that's okay.
Well, I mean, honestly, the Civic Center makes sense on so many levels. You can have a green space, you could have a STEAM center for the kids. There's an area that you can expand your minds and your bodies that makes sense, not on cement. Thanks.
And it's a 7-minute walk from the community center to downtown.
Yes.
Okay, the next person is Carmen. Carmentina.
Curriculum, I will refrain at this time.
Refrain, okay.
I did not write anything and I think my colleagues are.
So, well, thank you, appreciate it. Next person is Rich Rowley.
Good evening, my name is Rich Rollins. I'm a lifelong Peninsula resident, 40-year resident and business owner in Mount Park. And I come here tonight to express what I share with a number of people who've been in this whole housing element process. Our grave concerns of the fiscal, logistical, and operational capability of the district to meet the very challenging needs we see as outlined with this proposal, high density, high-rise housing on the old road parking lots. We all know about evacuation, how critical that is. And I think that once you understand that it would be near gridlock with the backup on El Camino, Oak Grove, Menlo Avenue, the offset streets, Santa Cruz being partially blocked off, that in the event of some kind of a disaster, be it fire, earthquake, which is inevitable, we could have a situation of mass chaos. And I think that that's something the fire board really should be proactive in discussing with the city and say, we have some very, very great concerns. Our basic outline is that there are better options. Civic Center being one. Quicker response from Fire Station 1 here. We have open space for evac. You probably have heard recently, not only in the fires in Campfire Paradise, Lahaina, the Palisades, Altadena, and recently the runaway lithium battery fire at Boss Landing, which ejected toxic hydrogen fluoride gas. So we have a number of issues. The Civic Center would check a number of boxes for the fire district, as well as providing much needed affordable housing within walking distance of downtown, in a transit corridor, much safer area than Bolton. I have some professional and personal connection. Firefight, I do not presume to come anywhere close to your talent and experience, but I've worked carefully with the Palo Alto Fire Department, former Chief Grijalva and working out of evac then for a preschool operation at South Palo Alto, and then with the Palo Alto Firefighters Union campaign headquarters to prevent council from shutting down fire stations. A few years back. Personally, my nephew is a San Jose fire captain. He produces instructional videos for Probies. Prior to that, he was with Contra Costa County doing the same thing. His brother is a certified EMT, San Jose active. And our son is a geophysicist, first working at USGS on earthquake hazard models, then at USC, working with Southern California Earthquake Center, where many of you know, Office developed a great shakeout drill every October, and then subsequently at Caltech, where he worked closely with the team to devise earthquake hazard forecasting models. When I asked him about what.
I'm
what
sorry to
happened-
interrupt, but
Sure.
the 3 minutes is up if you wanna.
Okay, I'll just sum up basically. His great concern as he expressed what might happen in a big earthquake in the Bay Area would be not structural damage, but mass rupture of water and gas mains. And there are not a sufficient supply west of Mississippi to replace those. And to that end, there was a big quake in Napa a little over 10 years ago, and there's an interesting paper about the challenges that met, and I made some copies I'd be happy to hand out to the board. You can review it. I think it's very important to understand that we have serious infrastructure and environmental constraints with proposed downtown lots. And less so Civic Center, I think it checks on other boxes. And it's up. This was written by a trained civil engineer and urban planner who is now working closely with an agency that first with FEMA on disaster preparedness and evacuation. So it's very, very unlikely what happened in that quake, and that was just a small portion of what we might occur if catastrophic quake happened here. Those are my comments, thank you.
Thank you. There's no more comments.
Oh, we have one more coming,
One more comment?
if you'd like to proceed.
Oh,
Right. Oh.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jeff Schmidt. I'm the city council member for District 3. I had a free evening, live just down the street. Just want to say hello, introduce myself. I'm learning and listening about all the discussions around downtown. Obviously, as a member of city council, I've heard a lot of debates and discussions. I've met, obviously, Chief Brendan and Rob, but I'm looking forward to meeting everybody and working with you. And I appreciate the fact that everyone's coming out and talking about this. It's gonna be probably the issue for the next 4 or 5 years that we're gonna debate as a city. So just wanted to say, by way of introduction, it's good to meet you. I'll try to attend these on a more regular basis and happy to engage and discuss. But thanks for coming. And thanks for holding this meeting.
Thank you. Thank you. If there's no more comments, no, make a quick one. Please.
Okay, he's gonna keep quiet, and I'll go to parking lot after.
I am Alex Botano. Can you say it again? I'm Alex Botano. And hopefully we aren't debating this for 4 or 5 years because I don't think the downtown will survive it. And so, at the last meeting, Captain, you said that typically you don't give an assessment on something like this until you've seen the actual proposals. I'm afraid in this situation, by the time that happens, a lot of things may have happened. With land declarations, et cetera. And I'm afraid that there'll be so much pressure to do it by that point, that it may be too late to really consider what you have to say. I think that a key decision point is coming up quickly with the RFQ submissions, which are due March 31st. And soon thereafter, city council is gonna really be deciding, okay, do we wanna go forward with this? Is this worth pursuing? And they'll be looking at all the reasons to do it and not do it. And I won't go into all the reasons not to do it, but clearly fire hazard is something they should be considering at that point. And so I know it's not normal, but hopefully you guys can come up with something simple in general that addresses what you can in a short period of time, not seeing precise proposals, but understanding the basic premise of what's being proposed.
Thank you.
Oh.
Are there any more I will close the public comment session. Michelle, is there anyone online that needs to say, have?
We're only accepting public comment in person.
Reminder.
Thank you.
Okay,
Just wanted to make sure.
from the board, there has been a request, all board members, there's been a request to move item number 9 up to as the next item before we get launching to item number 1. So I want to make sure that, if the rest of the board members agree to move that up, we can do that. If not, then we'll just proceed as we normally do. Is there any objections to it?
I made the request. It was for the liaison report.
Okay, so no objections, and we'll move item number 9, which is our liaison report up to Chief Financial Officer.
Sorry.
Thank you. That's fine. To number 1, so we can get you back. You're on that. So, the first report will be from, liaison report from the town of Atherton.
Yeah, so I have nothing to report. Their meeting is actually tomorrow night.
Okay, next report will be City of East Palo Alto. I just want to report that the City of East Palo Alto, since I'm the liaison for that particular community, is going through their strategic planning process, and they are reaching out to their nonprofits as well as, entities like the fire district here and the police department, Menlo Park, and et cetera, to try to get an update idea as to some of their, what they think are the needs that we may have, so we can integrate that into their planning process. That's it for my report. City of Menlo Park.
Yes, that's me. So thank you, Chair, President Jones, for indulging me. I actually made the request to move this item up because I knew that a lot of you were very interested in some of the issues that are in Menlo Park. And so I am the Menlo Park liaison, and I thank Councilmember Schmidt for being here. I actually reached out to you to meet because I'm the liaison. Yeah, so I hope that we can set that meeting up. I actually had some meetings with Mayor Drew Combs about these issues, but really it wasn't even like we were talking about what should happen, but I can just give you some of the updates right now. We did discuss the Oak Grove parking lot housing issue, which was, obviously the big thing that everyone's talking about right now. And I know that the council has done an RFQ, and as of this afternoon, there has been no response to the RFQ. And this is probably about 3 o'clock. So I spoke with Mayor Combs today about that, because we speak probably every other day or so. So there's really nothing there that's happening. I have heard from many residents, including some residents here, and I thank you for your engagement and for caring about the issue. And they're not, and down, it's actually some of the downtown businesses, because I actually go down there and shop, and the needlepoint shop, the restaurants, things like that. And, they're by and large small businesses, which I actually support, but they're not crazy about this current proposal right now, just so I'm sure you've heard a lot of this. And they're actually concerned that their livelihood's going to be taken away. They think that some of the alternative sites that, I think, who was it who mentioned the Civic Center area? Because yeah, both you, Mary and Rich, because that actually, I think, came up at the January 28th meeting, the city council meeting. Is that a special meeting? I think it was a regular city council meeting that it came up in. All I know is it's a lunar new year, right? So I watched the meeting actually on Zoom afterward, but that came up. So I'm hoping that, there were a lot of public comments that night, and not just that meeting, but the previous meeting. So I just hope that the council and the city can work with the fire district to not just on this issue, but the 80 Boulevard, other developments. And just so you know, Jeff, I've made the request for us to be engaged with all of the cities in the county that we have jurisdiction in, right? So that we're looking at all the projects on a macro level and, be able to give input, especially as the housing issue becomes more discussed, I think is probably the best way. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to do that. But that's really just a quick update. I think the big thing is that there has been no response to the RFQ as of this afternoon.
I'm sorry, when you say there's been no,
We're not doing a dialogue session, we're doing reports. And then you can give her an acting set, it would be great if you could hold that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that's pretty much it for my, and I can do the director's report. Under item 10, but that's it for the liaison report.
District 3? Yeah,
I have nothing to report.
District 4, I don't know.
Sure.
I don't have anything to report either. Cemetery County Pre-Hospital Emergency Medical Insurance Policy Board, right?
For people that don't know, the pre-medical group is a Joint Powers Act that deals with radio dispatch of the agreement between AMR, which is the American Medical Response, and us in the transporting when a fire unit arrives on the scene. Then an ambulance shows up in order to transport the individual that needs medical attention. So I sit on that board, and the chief is part of the executive leadership of the board. So we have a meeting tomorrow night, if you all like to come. I know it is. We have a meeting tomorrow night at 6:30 at the AMR headquarters off Romans Road in Burlingame. And we meet quarterly if we have a home. So we'll be dealing with issues involving transport services, budget, policy, and we have our chief that sits on that board also. So, thank you.
Next one, yeah, San Francisco Creek.
No,
No, I think I have,
Oh, that's here, yeah.
and I have not had an opportunity to engage with them as of yet.
it didn't flood, so I think we're good.
All right,
Thanks for
So
me.
can I make a request? And,
on the board request not there yet.
I'd like to move number 10 up since we've done 9. So that people can hear our requests
Oh, well,
and our reporting.
that, I think the SSO, I think, was dealing with one of the audiences here, I think, the report from Menlo Park. I think the director's report in the press, that's more, I think, of an internal thing for us as directors.
I'd like to explain the reason why I want to move 10 is that in our November meeting, the chief had prepared an excellent report as to what the responsibilities are of our special district in relationship to the communities we serve. And I just want to give them the informational.
Well, you can give the information after we go through all of this. Or, it was.
That's why I want to 10.
I was asked to do this before the board meeting started, so I made provision for that. So.
But you did it in the hallway.
Well, that's before the board meeting. That can be in the toilet, I don't care, but it can be in the toilet.
Yeah.
Okay. From that, clear enough?
Thank you.
All right.
Can we deal with number 10 and have the other board members say that they don't want us to report on what maybe myself and Chuck and some of the other board members want to report on, and then start the agenda again? Because I think informationally, I think the people here should know.
Well, they will know as soon as we get to that item, but, in terms of moving up before the rest of the agenda item, there are some items in here very.
But what I'm trying to do is I don't want them to sit for a 3-hour meeting here and wait.
We're
for
not
the
gonna
end.
be here 3 hours, come 9 o'clock, we're out of here. Now, if you can't wait for 9 o'clock, but I would appreciate it very much.
I'm not here for.
There you go. Rather than have the board meeting. But I'm just,
Why can't you let these people know?
the people will know.
Why? No, they won't.
I'm not here, I'm
Not
not
if you
here.
restrict them to sit here for 3
Look here,
hours.
I'm not here to argue with you tonight.
I'm not here to argue either.
I
I just
gave-
want to give them the
I just gave you
information
my
that they
request.
should have.
I just gave you my request.
Right.
If you don't want to respect my request, then I don't know what to say.
Well, you don't want to respect my
No, my
request
request-
because I want to put you
Rob.
moved number 9 and I had
I
no
was
problem.
given- I
Listen to
was
me,
given
I had
that
no problem with number
before the
9
meeting, Rob.
being brought to the attention
Before the meeting,
of the
Rob.
board. And now
Not
I'm making a
doing-
request for number 10 to be brought in front, and you won't listen to me,
I'll call
or you
for the-
won't listen to
we'll
other
call for-
board members.
We'll call for the vote, if you wanna, we'll call for the vote to move item number 10 up to next. Michelle, can I get a roll call? We need a motion.
Yeah,
first.
thank you.
Can I get a motion to move item number 10 up to the next meeting, to the next, item?
I'll make the motion to move, that item 10 be heard before all the other agenda items, to be informational to the people that are here and that have come here to seek guidance and information from the fire board. And I don't know why you're
Is there-
restricting
is there
that.
a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Been moved in second. Michelle, can we get a roll call vote?
Director Bernstein,
Aye.
Director Bloom,
You vote nay, and the reason is I think there's a lot in the chief's report that the community should hear.
Director Crawley,
Nay, I'm in agreement. I think that everyone should be able to hear the chief report right now.
Director Solana,
I,
Director Jones.
No. We'll move on to item number 1.
sorry, folks.
Item 1.
Sorry.
Chief report.
Yes. Item 8. I feel a lot of pressure since there's, yes, how important this is. There is some good information here. I will also share with you. If you choose to leave now, you can watch this. It's recorded on our website and available, including any comments that are made by any of our board members throughout the meeting. So thank you, Director Jones. The report for our February 18th board meeting from the fire chief is right here. First of all, just a quick update on the Station 1 design. You have in front of you a sheet of paper that was provided by John Hitchcock. Really, the only changes, I don't even want to call them significant, are we are underway with some discussions with St. Patrick's Seminary in permitting us to relocate a temporary fire station onto their property immediately adjacent to Station 1. The conversations have been productive so far. Again, and then at the very bottom, under the upcoming project cost estimates, we expect by the end of the calendar year to have professionally developed cost estimates on the project from, I believe it's our architectural firm and also a professional cost estimator. So those are the two major updates that are on that sheet. Everything else is just moving forward through the review process. We're waiting for a CEQA contractor to be identified, and then we'll start through on the CEQA process. Updates on recruitment and promotions. First of all, the mechanic promotional test that we had, we hired a mechanic. He should be starting soon if he hasn't already. March 1st? March 1st. We'll have a new mechanic. Fire captain's test is in progress. It was actually occurring today. Fire marshal recruitment. As you all are aware, Chief Johnson, our fire marshal, is retiring effective May 1st. We actually had 28 applications for the position, so thank you for allowing us to change the classification and the salary. It still resulted in a very good recruitment. Today, they interviewed 9 candidates. They're moving forward 4 candidates tomorrow. Myself and Chief McDonald are going to do selection interviews. And after that, in compliance with the board request for these executive staff level positions, I will make a selection, a recommendation, and forward to you tomorrow via email, each individually, some information about the selected candidate, looking for pretty quick turnaround of 24 hours for you if you have questions, concerns, comments. Normally I could have the latitude of a little bit more time, but process-wise, we're trying very hard to have the new fire marshal be on board by April 15th, so we have a 2-week overlap between our exiting fire marshal and the new fire. So,
Can you explain fire marshal duties, some of the duties?
oh, sure. So our fire marshal's responsibilities, as everyone is aware, is obviously code compliance. These are overarching responsibilities. All plan checks, make sure we have compliance with
California Fire Code, any local ordinances. The fire marshal also has responsibility for our community risk reduction program, which should include emergency preparedness, volunteer coordination, the CERT program, and community education. Hazmat inspections of right inspections. Pretty broad range of duties for the fire marshal. Just a quick update on our activities from our community engagement unit. And I will find that. Kind of a report out from both Heather and Amandeep. Heather is our community volunteer coordinator. Amandeep is our community educator. Over the last month, we've had some community class presentations. Red Cross Ready was done in partnership with Climate Resilient Communities. We had approximately 70 attendees in the class in East Palo Alto, called the CPR class for 30 City of East Palo Alto staff. Again, our continuing monthly CPR first aid and stop bleed classes. I know we have an event coming up where we're going to do in-house CPR for all of our staff, for those that don't know how to do it. Great community events. We have our monthly fire marshal safety pop-up. We had 20 people attend that. Menlo College Student Resources Fair with 25 people in attending. Our outreach at schools, we had 9 school group presentations touching 157 students. 2 Boy Scout troops with 80 scouts and parents. We are training our next group of CERT folks. We also trained our next group in firefighter rehab that our current CERT members participate in. The CERT folks also assisted with our Task Force 3 deployment to the fires down south in the LA area. For those in the audience that aren't aware, Menlo Park sponsors a FEMA Task Force, one of 28 teams in the country. So we sent our resources down there to assist in the recovery efforts during the Palisades and Altadena fires. That is it from the community engagement unit. We have also attached the fire response analysis report in attachment A. There's not anything in particular to touch on there. Just continue to monitor our statistics for month-to-month deployments. Just an update. We've had quite a bit of activity going on in light of the rains that have come into the area. So obviously our folks all came back from the Southern California fire deployments, and then pretty quickly we moved into dealing with our weather events up here. Initially, we had an OES request to deploy our swiftwater rescue teams down to Monterey County in anticipation of some anticipated flooding. This was sponsored by the state of California and fully reimbursed, but this is part of the pre-positioning monies that Governor Newsom set aside probably about 6 years ago after, I think it was the Tubbs fire up in Northern California. We also augmented internal staffing on 2 occasions. One was self-sponsored in that we weren't reimbursed. We stood up 2 additional units on a heavy rain day. And then just this past week with the rains coming in, we stood up 1 unit and were reimbursed through repositioning monies from state OES. So just as for everyone's awareness that when we see anticipated events coming in that are predictable and we anticipate some additional call volume, we will usually be proactive and stand up additional resources. We had a Fire Scope Board of Directors meeting down in Los Angeles. This meeting had been delayed by 2 or 3 weeks as a result of the fires. Both the LA City and LA County Fire Chiefs sit on that board with me, and the purpose of that 2-day meeting primarily was for about 25% to do just our regular business, and the remaining 75% was to have some facilitated discussions on what we can do as the California Fire Service in trying to prevent, catastrophic fires from occurring moving forward. So I don't know that we had any ideas that were going to necessarily fix the issue, but certainly was a lot of discussion down there, but just about how we, for the areas that we can impact, how we can make it better with quicker response, with quicker ordering. We all recognize the challenges that we're down there with lack of resources and water. And then also just the house-to-house conflagration that occurred there that was unlike anything we've seen pretty much ever. There's certainly the fires are getting worse and worse. City council meeting rotation. This is a request that has come from our board here that fire chief, meaning me, start participating and attending council meetings. So I've already set up on a kind of a 3-month rotational basis. So I will be attending one council meeting every month. Tomorrow night will be the town of Atherton, which means director, you're on your own at our ALS JPA meeting. I didn't realize there was a conflict when we set up, but I've already chatted with the city manager. I think he got it, but it'll be good. And, yeah, so anyway, I will report out on my interaction with them along with whoever our liaison is when the time comes up next month. Fire hazard severity zone maps, and I also, you'll notice on the agenda, I pulled out and kind of flagged it so that it gave me the ability to actually have some discussion with the board, fire hazard severity zone maps and communication with our community. So next week on February 24th, the State Office of Fire Marshal is releasing fire hazard severity zone maps for our portion of Northern California. That in the past, the state has created these maps for state responsibility areas. After all these catastrophic fires, state legislators now are requiring state fire marshal to actually go into our local areas, means inside of our incorporated cities where the state really hasn't had any authority, and actually go through and model all of our areas so we know what kind of fire hazards severity zone exists. That will come out next Monday. I would imagine there's going to be quite a bit of interest and probably concern also when suddenly areas that weren't classified as any kind of risk are now either going to be classified still potentially as no risk, moderate, high, or very high risk. And people's concerns, especially in light of the fires down south, what they can do to prepare, what's this going to do to my insurance premiums or my ability to get insurance, all those questions. And I don't have all the answers, but I will say there's been quite a bit of interest and concern coming from not only our fire board, but our towns and city councils, as far as hosting and having some conversations with our communities on what they can do to be better prepared. So the first one will be, and this happened as a result of me telling George Rodericks that I will be there tomorrow night, was just that it would be really great if we could put something on the schedule to start us out. So sometime in early to mid-March on a Saturday, we were going to partner with ADAPT and the town of Atherton and the police department and the fire district to host a community meeting at over at Palmer Park. Anyone, whether you're a resident of Atherton or Menlo Park or any of our communities, is certainly welcome to attend. There'll be many more opportunities as we partner with the city of Menlo Park. Also, the same thing. I chatted with Justin Murphy, your city manager, and he's also interested. So our goal is to do everything we can to help prepare our communities for what's coming. Some of that's going to include some new ideas of defensible space. Some of it will be tips for home hardening. Some of it will just be answering some questions, I think, that came out as a result of what we all saw down in Los Angeles, and you know, how could that have been handled or dealt with differently? And I think some of it, it's just going to be honest and transparent communications with the community about what you can expect out of our water system, or some of the challenges when your fuels in the community actually turn out to be the homes and your ornamental vegetation. And it's not a wildland fire as much as it is an urban conflagration. And just, witnessing year after year, over the last 10 years, we've seen fires get incrementally worse. I hope this is as bad as it gets, but we don't know. And just trying to make sure that our communities are prepared. And also partnering with our law enforcement folks on evacuations. It's one of the concerns up here with, the more people we have in our community, the more challenges we have. Obviously, we saw that down in LA. Part of that is making sure we've got great relationships with law enforcement folks. Fire is responsible for identifying evacuation areas, and law enforcement is responsible for implementing So, and then our DEM or our OAS is responsible to a degree in helping with the notifications to our public. So trying to find out some new ways also that we can communicate with the public so they are engaged and feel like they have the information they need to make informed decisions. So stay tuned for that. Yes.
I want to maybe emphasize that a little bit more. I know in the city we saw also the meetings I had, especially when you start talking about strategic planning, this is exactly, they have hired a new emergency manager over there. And I think they would be prime, I think it's prime territory in terms of being able to kind of take whatever the Atchison and the fire department multiple report talked about. Is exactly what I think is really needed for, or they ask for from the city also as they develop their emergency management, emergency plan.
And I guarantee we will have meetings in all of our communities. You know, there's interest in, even though East Palo Alto may feel like it's not at higher risk of wildland fire, we certainly have quite a few other risks here that we can deal with, and we just never know. I mean, I think there was certain things we saw all burning down in LA, what like for me, didn't expect to burn. Areas that weren't in what we call the wildland urban interface, and yet everything from where the fire started to the ocean was gone. So you want a question now, or happy to answer it now, or I can, but really, if you have questions, okay.
I'm on hold till you're finished.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But that's, you know, I put that on there and called it out so that there was the opportunity for questions and input. Really, obviously, it's really in everyone's mind now, and we're gonna work on moving it forward. Also going on right now, it's filling up a lot of our time on the administrative side is our budget preparation. We meet with all of our program managers. We will be bringing that at some point in time in draft form to the finance committee and then also to the board. ALSJP Management Committee, as Director Solano mentioned, I sit on that committee. We met just this last week. Part of our discussions was to talk about hiring or switching over from a full-time to part-time director. Part of it also discussed the email that was sent to Mike Callaghy from Clay, I'm trying to remember Clay's last name, but the retired Daily City Manager, and it was done in kind of conjunction with conversations with city managers and some electeds, but basically, I think the ask was to push off these conversations until such a point in time when we're potentially renegotiating the contract with AMR, where there's, when we can actually do it like that. We haven't heard back, but that's kind of where it stands. I would imagine there'll be some conversations about that tomorrow.
Wait, so Mark, you're saying that's the response that y'all gave to the county manager?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood.
That's it. And I will go back and I'll make a note here and actually send it to the board privately so you can see what the response.
Thank you.
Chief, do they have an amount that the county wants?
They
Any
haven't gotten to
issues?
that.
They haven't.
Yeah, I mean, they have an amount that Mike Callaghy originally asked for, which was
I'm sure I'll find out
approximately somewhere in the $3 to $4 million range, but yeah, I think.
The cost sharing 50/50.
Yeah, our current position is that, hey, we're interested in being good partners. We're all subsidizing the system to a degree. And we're certainly willing to, continue with our, what we want to call them, indexed increases based on inflation, over time, but this ask right now is too big of a lift. So we'll see what the conversations end up being like. And then finally, just again, I have those two items sitting on there, outstanding reports for internal controls and verification of vice chair's report. That concludes my chief's report.
Any questions?
Yes, Trustee. Yes, thank you, Chief. Do we know who when you talking about the city council meeting invitation, do we know who the liaisons are to our fire district from those communities?
I do not. I can certainly
Already had
find
the
out,
deals.
yeah.
If you could let us know about that. And as to the, I know we've been working on this ISO secret code as to find out, you know, how those ratings are. And what we actually have to get a class 1 rating, this is now a class 2. And, you know, what are those parameters that we need to achieve relative to that? And I know your staff's been working on that. And that's all I have. Thank you, Robin.
Any questions for Chief?
I have sent, Chief, I've sent you, a memo about the fire response analysis and so forth. I think we're starting to get some numbers that we can look at, and as of January, we are no longer meeting our target of 7-minute response times for either EMS calls or for all other calls. So we're over the target we set for ourselves. And I think we need to bear down on this issue. One of the major concerns I have, and I'm not one who wants to play nicely with the county. I think the county is doing a terrible job. Their time for call processing is running about 1.5 minutes. And that's way, way out of line. It's just not clear why it should take 1.5 minutes after a call comes in from 911 to the county. It takes 1.5 minutes to dispatch a unit to some sort of an event. It just seems like they can do much better than that. I don't know if the problem is they're not answering the phone or they don't have the people. I don't know what the problem is, but I think somebody needs to be asking them what the problem is because it's much too long. And even 7 minutes isn't a very, it's not 7 minutes in total, by the way. It used to be, and I don't know when it changed. We used to talk about 7 minutes and include call processing time. Now we talk about 7 minutes and it's only turnout time and response time. It doesn't include call processing anymore. So I think this is something that just needs to be done. I think we should be looking at alternatives to the county doing the call processing. And somehow we need to get going on this because again, we're doing worse and worse with regard to the time on these calls. The other thing I'm concerned about is
Before you run on to the next one, could you maybe get a response from the chief so we can move this item that you're talking about? Put it somewhere so we can talk about it at a later date, whether in a committee or just put it back in the agenda.
Well, I would suggest that that's a brilliant comment, that if you want to talk about this as obviously a matter of some public interest and it's not on the agenda, so it would be great to put this discussion on the agenda if you're planning on having an actual discussion with you guys rather than do that this evening.
So, Chuck, could you bring this up when we get down to the request of directors?
Or propose to do that.
Proposed, but then I would do hold it off until you put that, make a recommendation at that.
okay, but let me just say, are you saying that, well, okay, so I should pose this as a question. I also wanted just to I don't know where I would put this, but you made a statement that that people are trying to delay the conversation about the ambulance contract until we're closer to negotiating the contract. And I just want to point out, for your information, you probably know this, but I don't think you were here at the time. The county speeded up the contract negotiation, just when everybody wanted to talk about it. They signed the agreement before anybody could talk about it. So the county is not trustworthy here at all. And I'm worried that we're trusting them to do something that in the past they have not done in an honest, transparent way.
Okay, any other comments from chief or move on?
No.
Okay. So we'll move on to item number 3, which is
Consent calendar.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I can't hear you. Can you speak up, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
A motion been made to approve the consent calendar is.
I'll second it.
For a second, is there anything anybody want to call at this point? Or, okay, if not, then we.
Can I ask a question about it?
Sure.
I don't have any issue with the consent calendar, but I'm curious why the, where is it, where we're approving, oh, I'm sorry.
Never mind, I've answered my own question.
Okay, great.
I apologize.
You for that, that's motion's gonna be. Anybody, got the motion been made, the second, roll call?
Director Bernstein,
Aye.
Director Bloom.
Aye.
Director Crawley.
Aye.
Director Solano.
Aye.
Director Jones.
Aye, motion carried. So now we'll move on to our regular agenda items. We have two items. Item number 6 is to accept the fiscal year 2024 mid-year fiscal report. Is there, Elaine?
I will just kick it off and then turn it right over to Elaine. So this is reviewed at our finance committee meeting 2 weeks ago and was recommended for approval by the finance committee board. With that, all yours, Elaine.
Good evening, directors. Good evening, everyone. So for the mid-year fiscal review, this is pretty much the same as the treasurer's report that you just actually approved in the consent calendar. The only difference is there are a little bit more details in this report. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to point out some of the major things that I think the board should know. And then if there's like any questions, in the report, just feel free to ask. So just a refresher, the district has 3 major funds, the general fund, the CIP, and the special revenue fund. The description of each fund is laid out on page 2 of the report, which is page 344, I believe, in the packet. So as of December 31, 2024, the district recorded $45.7 million in revenues and $32.6 million in expenditures, leading to an overall fund balance of $147 million, which is, as of December, it's an increase of $13.2 million from last year's fund balance. I'm also going to point out that on page 3, second table, I think it's page 345 of the packet. These are the projected numbers as of December, which is projected until June. So we are projecting about $97.7 million in revenues and $76.9 million in expenses, which would lead to $154.6 million in fund balance across all major funds, a $20.8 million increase from last year. That's the summary of the overall major fund balance activities as of December and the projections until June. And then I would also like to point out for the general fund, which is on page 4 of the report, again, it's page 346 of the packet. The general fund has $45.2 million in revenues, $30.9 million expenditures, and $714,000 in operating transfers, which resulted to approximately $13.6 million in operating savings as of December. And based on the current information that we have, it is projected that we're going to have $8.5 million budget savings as of the fiscal year end. And we will, as the board knows, we will discuss the allocation of that savings as part of the year-end process. That's going to be around October this year. So that $8.5 million will be allocated to the appropriate reserves according to our fund balance policy. Then for the CIP, which is I believe it's on page 13 of the report, which is page 355 of the packet. So as of December, we have about $126 million balance for the CIP, and $104.7 million of that is actually related to the Station 1 project.
How much is it?
104.7. And then lastly, on page 15 of the report, it's page 357 of the packet. I did briefly mention earlier that, the projection for the fund balance, until June, it's gonna be $154.6 million, which is a $20.8 million increase from next year. That's it for the mid-year fiscal report. If there's any questions, feel free to ask.
Before we take any questions, we have a motion to approve the report.
So moved.
Second. Second, call to, questions? Discussion?
I'll just thank Elaine for putting this together. I think we're an excellent financial help. Thank you.
And I would just mention for the community memory present, there's separate from this meeting, there's committee meetings. So there is a finance committee that goes through these kind of reports in more detail. That occurred during our monthly finance meeting.
Ross?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you.
I want to thank Elaine also, and as well as Francine and the chief, keeping their eyes on the prize, so to speak, in the budget, as well as the committee, to oversee what is going on and make strong recommendations from staff and both the board as to what direction we should go. And I think I am extremely excited for our balance for our capital improvement projects. It seems like we are doing a fantastic job in trying to self-fund that whole activity without having to go out and put us up in debt. So I want to say thank you. So most of
Can
the
I make a comment?
sure.
You know, I don't relish the idea of being a balloon popper, but, well, we can pat ourselves on the back, $8 million we've saved, good for us. But that's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is when we look at our revenue, last year, we took in $91 million. And so what we do this year, we budgeted 2 million less than that. And lo and behold, we got more money this year. That's not doing better, it's we budgeted low. And so when we suddenly do better than our budget, we're patting ourselves on the back and so forth, and it's just not the reality. Similarly, our expenditures last year were $55.9 million. This year, we put in almost $72 million. And lo and behold, we didn't spend all that money. And good for us, we're saving money. We're not saving money, we're just spending less than what was in the budget because we over budgeted for expenditures. Now, I'm not suggesting that we're not doing well. I think we are doing well. And I think that the financial management is actually in good shape. But I would just like us to be a little bit more informed and knowledgeable about what's really happening. And the reality is we over budgeted a couple million, we over expensed a couple million. So about half, because we didn't budget very accurately. If we had lost that amount of money, we'd be ripping our hair out, but now we're patting ourselves on the back. The accuracy of the budget is part of the problem. And I'm just trying to say this as we go into our budget thing again, that's been the practice of the district, is trying to make itself look good by not recognizing the full amount of revenues at the budget time and overestimating our expenses. And so we always look better than we are, but not for the reasons we think we are. So I've had my say, I just can't sit here and pat myself on the back where I think that at least half of the patting is not deserved.
Gary?
Yeah, so good evening. So I'm the chair of the finance committee. I just remind everybody that when we're doing budgeting, we're forecasting the future. So we're predicting what's going to happen. It's my general philosophy as chair of that committee that we take a conservative approach. It's not about positioning the district to look good or bad. It's about managing the finances of the district. What happens that Elaine was just explaining is at the end of that process, we have a conservative approach going forward. Numbers do often exceed a conservative forecast. I'd rather forecast conservatively and have excess than forecast aggressively and have deficits. And then the process that Elaine explained is at the end of the year, we take those numbers, those excesses, either on the expenditure side or the revenue side, whatever that balance is, and we then allocate it to things like the capital improvement fund. So the mention of the capital improvement fund by President Jones was that we're essentially talking about a project in the $120 million range to rebuild this complex. As you could tell when you drove up, this is one of our oldest complexes. It's one of the main fire stations, and build a combined administrative center as well as a new firehouse here as well, like we've done in downtown Menlo Park and East Palo Alto, on Alameda de las Pulgas, where we put in new stations. Our anticipation, because we're taking a conservative approach, is that the capital improvement fund will actually have funds allowing us to continue that project without taking on debt, but likely also fund the additional capital projects that come up in the future. Every year that goes on, every firehouse we have becomes older. You know, it's no different than your homes, and they shift, you know, in their age, and they reach a certain point where you have to make a decision, you either improve it or you demolish it and build a new one. And we go through the same process that homeowners do on that front. But we're in a pretty unique situation. We've been able to fund these projects without taking on debt. And that's partly based on a conservative finance. So I don't really agree with Director Bernstein that this is about setting us up to look like heroes or to make us be able to pat ourselves on the back. It's good conservative fiscal management, conservative budget processes, and then a very fair allocation at the end of the period to allocate money to long-term needs for the district. Thank you, Director.
And I think that, you know, it's good that we can self-fund ourselves, find a way to do that without having to go back to the taxpayer and ask for some money to complete these projects. So I'm still gonna pat ourselves on the back, at least my back. And I hope that we will, continue the improvements that we're making towards our finances. And I just want to give another shout out to the staff, because I'll take it any way I can for myself. All right, moving on to.
We have a motion and a second.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm trying to get folks out of here. There's been a motion and a second. Michelle?
Sure. Director Bernstein?
Aye.
Director Bloom?
Aye.
Director Crowley?
Aye.
Director Solano?
Aye.
Director Jones?
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to item number 7.
I will take this one briefly, then give it to Director Bloom, who can hand it off to Elaine. Anyway, this again was before the Finance Committee 2 months ago with a recommendation to move it for approval. I think everyone's aware that there was a memo sent out by Director Bernstein, and with that, I'm gonna pass it over to Director Bloom, who chairs the Finance Committee with some potential suggestions for some modifications.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. So our budget policy here is really predominantly documenting the way we've been doing budgeting. From what I can tell, predates my tenure, which is 2 years on the Fire District Board. So we're essentially writing it down. It's always good practice to write that down. We do have a budget timeline. There was an objection to the use of a term zero-based budgeting approach to suggest that we're not doing true, by definition, zero-based. I don't necessarily disagree with the comment about zero-based, but I also think philosophically what we're doing is we're revisiting all of our expenses every year, which I think is important to go back and kind of look and say, are the things that we're spending money on the things we should continue to spend money on? And that in a broader sense is zero-based, but doesn't need to be argued. What I'll do, President Jones, if you don't mind, is I'll make a motion that we approve the budget policy with one modification, which is the deletion of the word zero-based on page 2, page 360 in the packet of the budget policy. And that is the only place where zero-based is mentioned in the policy, we'll just delete those two words.
So it's section 4, bullet point 2.
Two, on
And
page
it's
2
like
of the
on
budget
page-
policy.
Yeah, page 2,
So
it's the
So-
4th word and 5th word.
so you just wanna take out
Just,
zero.
so I'm making a motion that we adopt the policy with the deletion of the word zero-based
And change-
policy with respect to Director Bernstein's comment.
And we'll change the word A to an approach. Right,
You just eliminate the comment. The district supports budget approach where all expenses must be justified.
right.
So a motion has been made to approve the budget.
I'll
I adopt the resolution, adopt by resolution of district, budget policy. And there's a second by, Director, Crowley.
And Elaine may have comments to go beyond what I commented as to the policy.
Did you get all that, Michelle?
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
all right. Okay, we're gonna have a first and second, we will then call for. Steph, go ahead.
I have a question. On page 3 of the policy, under the October, about halfway down, October through December, the third bullet, I'm curious to know what the budget proposal guide is. What does it look like, or how is it expressed? What do we tell managers?
I can speak on that, Director Brinton. So, we actually start our budget, our budget process is really continuing, so it's, throughout the year. So, but starting like October, November, December, we start to send out some notices to the division, chiefs and the managers, the program managers, to tell them, the budget is upcoming, the next operating budget cycle is, gonna be in discussions in the next few months. So what we do is, we actually use, a budgeting software. Right now, it's called OpenGov. So OpenGov. Yeah, OpenGov. So what it does really is, it streamlines our, budgeting process. So I gave them, access to all their programs. So restrict them to specific, program managers. And we also sent a specific guide, a step-by-step like instruction on how to fill out the information or, their budget proposals, including the narratives and justifications in the system. So that's what we typically do during, that time frame. We give them a notice, this is upcoming, this is the step-by-step guide on how you're gonna complete your budget. And then the review process as well, how we review it, how it goes to, to us, to the chief. And, everything that's related, to the upcoming budget cycle, we give that information to staff. So that's pretty much, the proposal guide that we were talking about. Yeah, it's about, the process itself, how we're gonna approach, the next year's budget.
Can I do a follow-up question?
Yes, sir.
Do we specify, for example, how much inflation is gonna be, or how much salary should go up, or are there any, do we say you can't go over 6% increase, or you can't go on? Do we give them any kind of numerical guidance on what they should do?
When it comes to personal costs, since all of the FTEs are actually budgeted by me, so I actually budget all of our FTEs, including the potential increases or anything that's related to the MOUs, any potential agreements in the future for anything that's going to be expiring in the next year or so. So anything FTE related, it's budgeted by executive leadership, like including me, Francine, and the chief. So we discuss, what we need if we're adding, deleting, or any reclassifying any positions. What we tell our staff is, our line personnel or our program managers is, for each of the program that they handle, in the system, we set our budget as 0. So they really start from I wouldn't say it's from scratch, but their base budget is 0. And then they would actually input, all of their proposals, give justifications, for what those are. But at the same time, we also present them like historical information of what they've spent so far for this current year, what was the actual that they spent last year, as well as, their budget this year. But they really start, their base budget is actually 0. When it comes to, guidance on, having them to set like some sort of a goal, there's like 6% increase or 6% decrease in the budget. We don't necessarily do that, but what we do is, after the proposals are submitted to us, we review all of the items like line by line. And, and they let us know like, what are these expenses, they justify it, what are the components of each of this, proposal that they're submitting. So we actually, do a detailed review with the chief and then with the executive team that this is their budget, these are the explanations of why we're actually asking for this budget. If there's new projects, new initiatives, what's the impact on cost? We analyze that, per program, level with all of those.
Thank you very much.
Anything else? We got a motion on the table, second, so.
Director Bernstein?
Aye.
Director Bloom?
Aye.
Director Crawley? Aye. Director Solano?
Aye.
Director Jones?
Aye. Motion is carried, and now we're moving to, what was it now? Oh, sorry, the reports that we request, we're gonna start off with
I'm sorry, Director Jones, proposed agenda items is next?
proposed agenda items, right? Oh, yes, any proposed agenda item. I have anyone have any items, any proposed, Chuck?
If you want to go first?
No, go first.
Well, you asked me to bring up the fire response analysis. And what I'm asking the chief to do is several things. I have, I listed, not a lot, but maybe 2 or 3 data items that I think would be helpful for us to understand. For example, as I understand, we cannot send in a fire crew into a building without at least 4 people on site. So I'm curious to know when we're getting to our second vehicle arriving. I just think it would be helpful because that's the point at which we could actually do something within a building.
Director Jones, I just, I wonder if I could beseech Director Bloom to remind the board of the structure that he ushered in for how the board desired to handle direct requests for new items. Because it seemed like you had a streamlined approach and we're not following that anymore, so I always thought you should be mindful about what it is that you're doing.
Yeah, so it's not my approach, it's in the board policy, just for clarity. And the way the board policy does it is, at this particular meeting, if you have a new item, it gets proposed, goes on a list. The merits of having that discussion or not having that discussion will get discussed at a subsequent meeting. And then once that discussion has occurred, then it's up to the president of the board and the chief as to when they'll be prepared to present that to the board. So it's a 3-step process. Tonight's process, given we had no other proposed agenda items carried over from previous periods, is simply to put it on the list.
Right.
And then the merit of doing it or not doing it would be discussed at the next meeting.
So what specifically, Chuck, you want to put on that I propose agenda item?
Let me try to put it in one sentence then. I'd like to see some additional data items. I'd like to also see if you could address the meaning of some of these things and what we might do about them. I mean, I think it's time to start doing something. So I'll leave it at that.
So, data items, are there specific data items that you have in mind?
Sorry.
You just told me not to say them.
You'll do that at the next meeting.
If I could make a suggestion, all we need, I'm not trying to make this more complicated, all you need is an agenda item on fire response analysis.
That's what I would
And then
put
you can
on.
talk about anything you'd like to under that heading of a fire response.
You got that, Michelle? Okay.
Well,
I got
is
one.
that okay?
I got one.
Okay, so hold on. So are we finished with you, Chuck?
I think so, yes.
Okay, good. Virginia has something?
No, so I'm just confirming that the item is fire response analysis.
That's what you said.
Correct.
Okay.
So we're all on the same
Got
page.
No problem.
I've been contacted by some businesses in Bohannon Park where they're concerned about the RV parking there and if it poses any type of a fire safety situation. And the business person provided me with a list of all the RVs and all the list of all the expired license plates on the RV. I don't Jeff, I don't know, but I'd like to propose that we put this on our agenda item as a fire safety issue. The RV parking over at Bohannon Park.
RV parking, get it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I had another one too.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm out of turn, but I just wanted to make sure.
No, that's okay, Rob, yeah, I don't have.
I'm done.
Oh, okay.
I'm done. Thank you, bro.
Oh, no, no.
I would like to put the fire investigation report of 2700 Middlefield to be discussed. I think there's lots of unanswered questions that we need to discuss.
The after action report?
That's not the title of it, it's called
Oh, the
Fire
fire
Investigation
investigation.
Report.
Are we good, Michelle?
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay, then we'll move on to.
Committee report.
Report. What she said. Hey, Ron, I'm glad I got on the field, because you helped me out. Okay, emergency preparedness is the first one, and so the only thing we had a robust meeting, I think. And part of what I recall that we had on discussion, we discussed the discussion on the community preparedness policy that was prepared by the chief and the staff. We, I think, tore it apart and we came back, put it back together and we're still tearing it apart. The upshot of that is, was that we still have a few more additions, adds to go with it. One of the things I was quite concerned as a board member, or one of the committee members, was that we separate out and one of our members, one of the community members, sent in a response to recommendation or items that they wanted to see as well as part of our conversation. We're separating purpose and policy, kind of define what the purpose of the community engagement work will look like, and be clear about that, and then set the policy based upon what the purpose might be. Help bring clarity as into marching orders on where direction we're gonna go. We're gonna look at the why, and then we're gonna look at the how we're gonna do it. So based on that idea, first we're gonna bring back to the board once we sort out the purpose, to be clear about that, because it's in the document itself, but we just want to separate it out from the actual policy itself. And then bring that to the board, make sure the board is satisfied and clear with that, pass that in, the whole policy is going to tell us how we're going to go about making it happen. So that's our approach that we talked about in the emergency preparedness.
And the interaction from the volunteer groups that we did in the fire district, to prepare and get a workable objective plan with the volunteer groups in relationship. The volunteer groups and the cities met after East Palo Alto, Menlo Park, and incorporated the counties to incorporate their ideas and information.
So that's that process that we're going to use to try to bring things back to the board, so there's some importance in this and thought as well as the actual work we produce. Anything, TPP?
That summed it up nicely.
Facility.
So facility did not meet. There is a station one update that was handed out. And we're in a time frame where there wasn't any action to be taken. So as soon as we're up to the next step, the facilities committee will start meeting again.
Human resource.
We didn't meet.
Yeah, the human resources, finance.
Finance, we did meet. So some of it we've already covered here, a combination of the treasurer's report, the budget policy, and the mid-year report were all reviewed. The other thing that we did is we had a review of our investment strategy with our investment advisors. And the good news there is the interest rates have held pretty high. For members of the community, we're predominantly limited to fixed income investments. We don't get to do creative investments as a public agency. Most of it's fixed income, most of it's in bond and treasury type products, and some corporate debt. and a duration of 3 years is the maximum the regulations allow us to do. So within that limit, all the headlines you hear about interest rates, if interest rates are high, we continue to make a lot of money on the money that we have deposited. And Elaine, remind me, I printed out what the amount of interest was in the last period.
Oh, as of December, our, count is actually 4.65. Our managed account is 4.62.
So that's the interest rate,
That's the rate.
the rate of interest that we
Yeah,
have received on it. It's been running about $500,000 to $600,000 per month of interest income that's coming in. Again, that was one of those budget items that we really couldn't completely forecast because we didn't know what interest rates were gonna do. I think the investment manager shared with us that prevailing view is that interest rates right now would be much lower than they are already. They've come down from the peak, but they're still very high, and so we're benefiting from that. That's all I had, but
I'll
Virginia,
make
do you
a
have
quick
anything else?
comment about so, one of the things that we talked about was the macroeconomic picture after the election and the kind of nervousness and uncertainty and unpredictability of the market. So we were very glad to see that the 4.65 yield kind of stood there, right? And we thought it would go down, especially since the Fed lowered rates twice in the last quarter of 2024. So I think that we're in a good position, as Gary said, that, we're trying to deal with making sure principal preservation is the investment philosophy so that we're not losing money. And so we're just gonna keep an eye on the macroeconomic and political climate right now. And it's not that they're nervous, but it's that there's so much unpredictability and we felt that as well as an investment committee, a finance committee. So we're looking out along with the investment manager.
Yeah, the thing I would add for benefit of the board members that we discuss with them is we're a little different than your typical fixed income investor.
Correct.
Typical fixed income investors go invest money, leave it there. They have the option and hold everything till maturity and fund it out. The principal value does go up and down. We're a little different because of our Station 1 project, where we're gonna hit a time frame where money's gonna be activating based on the calendar, not based on whether we're carrying losses or not carrying losses of the underlying principal value. So we have to be a little bit more conservative about managing our principal preservation because we are going to withdraw a vast majority of this money out over a relatively short period of time. We want to make sure we don't get forced into essentially taking losses in the portfolio. So we're watching that metric with our investment managers and we've educated them on the uniqueness of our district situation. So we want to maximize short-term results, but we don't want to risk putting ourselves in a bad situation when we're ready to spend the money.
Yeah, I agree with
So-
that. I mean, the capital projects are the big thing. So Robert, just know that the money will be available when we're dealing with our capital projects.
That's the
I mean,
goal.
that was what, that
That's
was a
the
big
point.
part of the
That's the
discussion.
point.
I mean, Gary's
Yeah.
right, it's like a longer term cash flow issue.
It's just a little different than a lot of agencies where you have a balance that's just your kind of running balance through the years. In
Yeah.
our case, we
We're
have a
not.
balance that's very high because of the saved up capital funds for these big projects, whether it's this station, the next station. So we periodically withdraw a massive amount of money out in a very short duration. That just creates a different risk profile that we have to manage too.
Well, our goal is not to come back to the taxpayer and ask us money. And I think that's a good, not every state is on it.
Yeah, bringing in $5 or $6 million a year in interest is helping us meet that goal.
Yeah. So do you need a motion, Robert? I'll make a motion.
No,
I don't
we
think
have
any
a
motion.
this is just a report from the finance committee.
Finance report.
Oh, sorry, I was looking at the budget.
That's okay.
Policy. Sorry.
All right, no problem. We thank you guys again for your hard work in finance committee. We have moving to item number 9, which is liaison report. We can skip over that because we talked about that. Now we have reports and requests from the director.
I have something.
Okay, let's go with Rob and then work our way down the
Sure.
table this way. Or you wanna go A, B, C?
No,
No,
I'm
you're fine.
Thank you for staying. No, On December 17, 2024, the chief prepared a staff report for us involving all these high density projects within the fire district. I felt we had a higher standard, and fire district can only make recommendations relative to it, and the chief prepared an excellent staff report that is under item 10 that discuss development projects within the fire district. And within that document, it talks about the 4 areas in which the fire district reviews particular building and projects. Ingress, egress, traffic calming techniques. What are the other 2?
I would have to look at my report.
Well, it's in that, in fact, Jeff, I gave you a copy of it. Discount my notes. And then, we have an excellent plans checking department and fire protection group here. And, as long as it doesn't violate California Fire Code, pretty much the cities or towns have the ultimate responsibility and the decision-making process on all the projects. So, I just wanted to make sure that you all knew that, and then I'll do my, all the things I did. One, myself and President Jones, we attended the nonprofit sharing group over at the EPA Center on January 23rd, and I was able to meet Mark Deanan, who's just been elected at East Palo Alto Council. On January 28th, I attended the IASI tabletop exercise, and Chief, you were very well represented by staff. And Brendan Bond, who's your Menlo Park representative for emergency management, was there also. On January 31st, I met Jeff. And we talked about a lot of things. And on February 4th, I met Jennifer Weiss. And we also met, talked about a whole bunch of stuff. In February 5th, I continue to sit on the oversight board for the sheriff's office as a commissioner. And February 13th, I sit on the Fire Districts Association of California Executive Board, and we had a meeting there, talked about issues. Most importantly is in the fires in Southern California and responses. And Chief, thank you for sending those engine companies down there. It was very helpful to them. And tomorrow I have a remedial meeting that I have to attend. Good to meet you, Chief. Thank you. Thank you, Robert.
Yeah. So I probably could have included this in the liaison report, but you probably read in the paper that the suburban park project has been appealed by some of the neighbors to the planning commission's recommendation. So after speaking with Mayor Combs, it sounds like the council, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Jeff, will be hearing this matter on either the 25th next week or your first March meeting. I don't know which one, but anyway, that's gonna be down the horizon about, what's gonna happen with the, I guess, the second egress issue. So that's something from Menlo Park. Chief, I spoke with, also Mayor, Drew Combs, and, okay, this is a request. We'd like to schedule a meeting with you, me, Robert, the president, if we would like to attend, the city manager and the mayor of Menlo Park. I mean, just to talk about things. So I think he's been trying to schedule meetings with other groups. So this is certainly one of the boards that the mayor would like to probably meet with the city manager. Also, I talked to Mark Dinan, Vice Mayor of East Palo Alto, he's very excited. He's a friend and he's gonna, I guess, probably like bring up issues that he sees, and I told him to talk to you too, because you're the liaison for East Palo Alto, but I was a congratulatory phone call to him back and forth. Also, John Hay called me, Mark, about the training, I guess that was referred to by one of the residents. So he just was excited that the house that was being torn down could be used for training. So it sounds like it went well, so thank you for doing that. The biggest thing, I guess, is I got a call from Supervisor Canapa's office, he's the current board president. And the supervisor are going to, or who wants to put this resolution reaffirming the commitment of the Board of Supervisors to the mental health and well-being of all first responders. So he's asked me to come and speak a little bit on that, because I've been an advocate for mental health for at least the emergency responders since before I was elected in 2011. And I've talked to former Battalion Chief Tom Calvert to come also speak and put together this program for mental wellness for the firefighters, at least down south, but some firefighters kind of dissipating too. And then Jason Martin, current Battalion Chief. So I guess he's kind of taken over the program. So we're gonna go to the Board of Supervisors on the February 25th meeting, which is next week, and talk about that, and hopefully, did you call the dogs? The dog?
I checked with Captain Bragg, he's off on vacation.
Okay,
We'll
so
reach
but
out to
I'll
you.
reference it, but were you able to talk to the other? Okay, so I'll talk about the dog program that we have. I mean, we're apparently the first in the state of California to have service dogs or emotional support dogs for one of our captains because of some of the trauma that he's endured. So, and I think we're pretty proud of that program. I think it's a great program. So it's just a way of just showing the Board of Supervisors what we've done in terms of mental health and support for our firefighters. So I mean, that's really the big thing. That's
Okay,
all I've got. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So could you tell us what the dogs do?
Well, so the board approved a support dog for Captain Bragg when I was board president.
To own a dog?
To bring a dog to work. Yeah, so I mean, do you wanna talk about it, Martin? We don't have to, but basically, it's the dog program, yeah. Yeah, I'm done, but that's it, he brings his dog for support when he comes here.
I'm happy to answer questions after you.
Yeah.
too, Director.
But I mean, it's just this program that we put together in 2023.
So,
I don't have a report. Here,
Yeah, so I had some interactions with a couple residents in Atherton, as well as one of the city council members about the Palisades fire and the Altadena fire relative to hardening of those. As a result of that, Director Crawley and I met with the chief, talked about this program that he mentioned actually about trying to do community type meetings, education about hardening your properties, what things can be done, planning ahead for fires, all those kinds of things. And then subsequently met with one of a different Atherton City Council member and the city manager. Net result of that was the work that the chief is now doing, and that session in Atherton's being scheduled. I would point out two things on it. One is we always expected, as far as the discussion here, that this would be a program we do in all of the different communities. It just happens that some of it got initiated very rapidly after the fires by Atherton. So that's kind of our tester pilot of that session, and then we'll take it on the road and do all the different communities. And then our expectation as well is that each of them that are held are not, limited to just the residents in that particular community. It's a district, wide event as well. So there'll be multiple opportunities for people to get educated, is the net result of it. It also led to some follow-on discussion about trees and tree canopy and tree management. And Atherton was kind of facing, I think, something might be unique from some of the other communities. There is a concern specifically raised around palm trees and whether they, increase in the number of palm trees in the town of Atherton is creating additional fire risk. And the short answer on that, it's something I did not know from our chief, is that if they are properly maintained and they don't have all the fuzz all over the trunk, that they're actually very fire safe trees, assuming proper maintenance. And so that concludes my report.
Thanks, Karen.
Let's see, I think I'm gonna combine report of the president report, really having separate. Other than this will go, kind of go out to the board members. And Michelle, I'm not sure if my request here is that I'm hoping that we as a board could plan a board retreat. And this year, hopefully before fiscal year ends. And the purpose is to come together as a governing body to discuss long and short-term strategic board goals that we as a board may think that we might want to try to pursue in looking at the strategic plan and how if certain activities or things that are laid out in there, and some of it really focusing on decisions that the board really have to make. And so I'm hoping that this retreat can not only focus on that as well as other pertinent activities and items that the board might want to see throughout the year, especially this year. And I'm hoping that both the chief, myself, and possibly Virginia, if we can, two of us can get together without having to be in a meeting. Violating the Brown Act to discuss putting this retreat together, which will be facilitated by some outside entities so that make sure we stay on target. But I think it's been, as far as I've been on board, almost 5 years, 6 years now. It's kind of one of the things that we never have done as a group, as a body. And hopefully maybe that some good may come out of that in terms of keeping us from stumbling all over ourselves in ideas and thought and act cohesively as one body. So that's my, and I'm not sure if I need a motion on that or if we just request to talk about it further. We have to put this on the agenda. We can talk about it further. I hope we don't. I think we just get the board okay and we just plan it.
That's your request.
That's my
So,
request.
Just for what it's worth, you as board president are allowed to call a special meeting of the
Okay,
board.
here it is. There it
That
is.
would be a special meeting of the board retreat is a special meeting of the board, so it's not an item that needs the full vote of the board, although of course, if the board wants to vote for it, you're welcome.
Well,
You're calling it.
I'm calling, but I
Calling it.
would like for it to be a unanimous support for this. If majority will work for me, but I'm hoping that.
Do you want me to make a motion?
Well, if I don't have to make a motion, that'd be great. If I could just
You
get
don't
a
have
head
to.
nod from folks, I'm good with that too. So,
Could you specify kind of the dimensions of that? It couldn't be off-site and a bunch of things like that, please?
You mean a board retreat?
Yes.
Board retreat will be open to the public like any Brown Act meeting.
Yeah.
So it must be within the jurisdictional boundaries of the district. It needs to be agendized 7 to 24 hours in advance. You are limited in your discussion to the items that are on. It's a meeting like any other meeting.
so the chief, myself, and.
It's just not a regular monthly meeting.
It's not a regular monthly meeting.
Yeah. It's a
We will
special.
plan it, we will bring some ideas back to you at the next board meeting, we put this part of it in it. We'll bring it back to you and we'll hash that around a little bit, see if you like it, and if there are some other suggestions you made, we will include that.
Could I ask one more question?
Absolutely.
Could it replace a regular board meeting?
I think this needs to be.
I'm just wondering if it could legally or whatever.
Legally.
Sure.
Okay.
But that's not the request.
That's not my request, but
Right.
you can be, and we can talk about that later. We'll open that. Okay. All right, so I get a head nod, and a head disagreement, that's what we're gonna move forward. All right?
Okay.
So is about 8:54. We have ran out of all of the agenda items. I don't think we have any more, so at this point, we call for adjournment.